Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you. So we're following up with more Season 11 deck profiles here. This one is going to be Dragon Link, a deck that I've been getting, gradually more and more comfortable with here as the kind of, just time in general goes on. It's funny, I wanted to play this deck for a long time, actually, right when Master Duel first came out, but pretty shortly afterward, I'd heard about this combo deck, this Dragon Link deck, and I thought it looked really interesting anytime I'd gone up against it, but, I was very much intimidated by it as well. However, now that I've gotten more and more acclimated with the deck, particularly started leaning into it once Borreload Dragon came out and the deck got a quote-unquote proper boss monster, although it's funny, most games you can win without even going into the Borreload Dragon here. I kind of always feature Striker Dragon as the main face of the deck because this is the one, this is the most important card for the deck for no doubt for sure. But in any case, yeah. Now I've been getting a lot more comfortable with this deck lately, and honestly, the kind of freeform combos are a bit stressful at first, but get a lot more fun once you get the hang of the deck. Now, as you can see, I am rocking currently this 40 card variant, not even above 40. I managed to get it just down to 40. It's pretty similar to the last variant that we showed. I did take out one of the two Collapserpents. I did see a couple of comments kind of pointing out, oh, you do really need the second one. It's no, not really. It's nice, but definitely not necessary. And then, what is a Feather Duster? There's some other one of that we end up dropping, but for the most part, we are playing mostly the same deck here, just trimmed it down to 40 cards. I really like this build at 40 cards, mostly because, and I talked about this when I covered Dragon Link in covering all the decks in the video at the end of the last month there. There is the 60 card Grass is Greener variant, which does have a lot more combo potential and is generally much better going first, or rather it can be more consistent going first because you're playing so many combo pieces. But for a best of one format, I honestly think the slim 40 card version with the disruption, so you can actually draw the disruption if you're going second there, is probably the way to go. That's not to say that I'm completely dismissing the 60 card grass builds. I would actually very much like to try one myself. I talked about this again in that other video I mentioned where I'm kind of looking for just more, I guess, of a justification to craft Grass is Greener for other decks besides just this one. I do have a couple in mind, but none that I'm super willing to commit to just yet. So yeah, as far as ratios go, we're doing the one Collapserpent, like I said. I've still got 3 Rokket Tracer. I've thought about going down to 2 because we do have the 3 the 3 quick launch here. But I still like opening Rokket Tracer. Excuse me. I still like opening the Rokket Tracer. I think that being able to open it along with another, a Seyfert or one of your, Collapserpent or Wyverburster here allows you to go for, a pretty powerful boot sector launch without having to do too much more setup on top of that. Sorry, I'm going to take a drink of water 1 second. And so just for consistency's sake, I like having 3 copies. That said, a 40 card variant is probably the build you can most get away with only playing 2 Tracers, so I have considered it, but I do really like having 3 copies here. I still really like having 2 Absorouter Dragon. I definitely underrated this card when I first played this deck, not just as a searcher for your rocket monsters, but also as an extender as well. And just being able to drop this and then use it as either a link or synchro material is very nice, and it can potentially even brought back with the Rokket Synchron as well. I think I have a game actually saved where I feature a play where we use the Rokket Synchron to bring back the Absorouter for a synchro play there. So this Rokket Synchron is mostly used to bring out the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, but you can also use it again with the Absorouter to make some plays there as well. Let's see. Yeah, overall I've been really liking the ratioing to this deck. The one thing I do kind of want is another target to send with Ravine. I do kind of miss having Destrudo in the deck in that regard. Really right now the only thing we're really looking to send is the Absorouter, but beyond that, there's just not a whole lot else that benefits from being sent directly from the deck to the graveyard. The Absorouter is definitely a good card to send with the Ravine, but I am kind of thinking that I might want another target just to, have the option there. And the Destrudo can be used as both the Absorouter is an extender for both synchro and link plays. It does cost half your life points, which can matter sometimes, but doesn't usually. I don't know. I'm very on the fence about it. If you have any suggestions, if there's any more experienced Dragon League players what you would play in a 40-card Dragon Link deck specifically, because I really am intrigued about getting this deck down to 40 cards and seeing like how well we can do with a slim build. Again, not opposed to trying a Grass's Greeter build potentially down the road, but for the time being, I really like this trimmed down version here. Extra deck is, I think exactly the same when we last left off. I'm still liking the Dillingerous Dragon. I've seen some people suggesting the what do you call it? The rank 8 Vampire. It's definitely not a bad option for this deck, but I think that'd be more inclined for like a 60-card variant as opposed to the 40-card variant, which I'm playing here. But definitely not a bad card for the deck. You just need more level 8s. I've really only got like the Chaos Ruler plus Levianeer currently with my build that I would do. And of course, I know there are plenty of other level 8 extenders you can play to make that easier to summon, but I'm just, again, speaking to my current build. Still loving the PSY Frames in here. Being able to go into the level 8 Synchro extra on your turn, I've talked about it many times before, is just so powerful. And of course, being such a combo-intensive deck, having backup for those plays is very nice. You do activate a lot of effects without monsters on the board, namely like, your Quick Launch or... well, it's mostly, honestly, Quick Launch. Chaos Space as well are very susceptible to Ash, and then you can, pop off the Gamma in response, and then just kind of take it from there. Alright, I think that about covers everything I wanted to talk about as far as like the build itself goes. Now let's go ahead and, as always, break it down card by card before we get into some gameplay. So we're playing 1 PSY Frame Driver, 1 Effect Veiler, 1 Rokket Synchron, 3 Maxx, 2 PSY Framegear Gamma, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 White Dragon Wyverburster, 1 Black Dragon Collapserpent, 3 Rokket Tracer, 1 Rokket Recharger, 2 Starliege Seyfert, 1 Rokket Calibur, 2 Absorouter Dragon, 1 Chaos Dragon Levianeer, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 3 Chaos Space, 1 Dragon Ravine, 1 Boot Sector Launch, 3 Quick Launch, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 3 Infinite Impermanence, 1 Borreload Savage Dragon, 1 Chaos Ruler the Chaotic Magical Dragon, 1 Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, 1 Guardragon Pisty, 2 Striker Dragon, 1 Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres, 1 Dragunity Knight Romulous, 1 Dillingerous Dragon, 1 Quadborrel Dragon, 1 IP Masquarena, 1 Dharc the Dark Charmer Gloomy, 1 Knightmare Unicorn, 1 Accesscode Talkder, and then finally 1 Borreload Dragon. Alright, so that's going to do it for the deck here. Now let's go to take a look at some games. Alright, so this first duel is going to be, it's interesting, it's a bit of a mirror match. It's like a Dragon Link deck, but it's like a Rose Dragon Link deck. It leans a little bit more into the Rose package, which is one of many packages you can include in this deck. It's one I've played with in the past, although I think the Rose package was a little bit better is a little bit better in tandem with like the Adventure package, so I really wouldn't, I don't know that I necessarily wouldn't play it at all without the Rose package, but I think it's much better. Or rather, I think the Rose package is much better with the Adventure package, like I said there. So, opponent's going to start with the Dragon Shrine. I'll let that resolve, because I'm thinking it might be Blue Eyes again. But if they're sending an Absorouter, then I'm definitely going to be hitting that with the Ash Blossom. I don't want my opponent to have a Rokket Calibur then going to summon a Wandering Griffin Rider. I'll pop off the Maxx in response to get a draw. Actually, 2 here as the opponent normal summons the Red Rose to go for the Baron. I wondered if they were going to use the Red Rose's effect to continue their plays here, but they actually decided to stop. Either way, this is totally fine with me, just from a sheer advantage standpoint, right? Like, yeah, our opponent's got a Baron de Fleur on board, but one, they actually put it out in defense mode, which, for me and my purposes in this deck, is actually better, because we have a lot of 3000 attack beat sticks, and they've only got 2 cards left in hand aside from that. Their graveyard doesn't have too many scary resources in here either, so from a sheer advantage standpoint, I've already got a decent leg up on my opponent. I've also still got Maxx and Ash Blossom on my hand, right? So even if things don't go the way I want them to this turn, I've got plenty of ammo for my opponent's next turn in order to follow up with and make sure that they don't get too far ahead. So we've got a call by for protection against one of these last 2 cards as well. I'm going to start by normally the Rokket Synchron, and then I can special the Absorouter, using it as both an extender and a searcher here in order to special summon the Chaos Ruler, and then I'll use the Absorouter's effect in order to get to the search. And I'll actually chain block the Chaos Ruler effect there, because I definitely want that one to resolve. Well, it's actually, there's multiple reasons you would want to chain the, or do the chain link in that order there. One is to chain block the Chaos Ruler, because between the Rokket Monster Search and this Excavate, I definitely care about the Excavate more. Obviously, I want the Chaos Magical Ruler to stay on board and not get destroyed as well. Baron de Fleur's Omni Negate is powerful, but can only respond to the last effect on the chain link. So that's why I put the Absorouter there. One reason. And the second reason is I do want the Search before I do the Excavate, because I would rather search this Rokket Calibur, or Tracer rather, and not have it be among the cards that I'm excavating, if at all possible. So, alright, let's do the Excavate here, sending a Seyfert, a Wyverburster, an Absorouter, a Gamma, and a Quick Launch. A pretty good Excavate as far as all things are considered there. So, I could have maybe not gotten the Wyverburster here and actually just special the Collapserpent. Actually, looking at my hand now, that was definitely the right play. I could have just summoned Collapserpent and then sent that for the Striker Dragon, and then added my remaining Wyverburster, and then I could have potentially added... That's the thing there, I didn't particularly need any of these other cards either. Like, Seyfert, I've already used my normal summon, so I can't use it. Absorouter, I've already used both effects, so I can't use it. Gamma, I've got stuff on board, so I can't really use it. I guess Gamma still would have been the better add, though, all things considered, but... we will actually get the extra Wyverburster anyway, just to kind of have as like discard fodder potentially. I did kind of think about, well, I wanted to battle first before I continue my plays here. I kind of thought about going for Romulous here, but given that we've already set up, or not just set up, but used our Absorouter and sent the other one to the graveyard, there's not really any point to using Dragon Ravine here, so I'm just going to go for a Hieratic Seal, setting the Called by in pass. So even though we didn't do too much damage during our opponent's turn there, you know, going into their turn, we've got the Hieratic Seal, we've got the Sea and the Ash in hand, like I said, the Called by set. So between these 4 pieces of disruption and our opponent's 3 cards in hand, I'm really not too concerned about what they're going to be able to do here. They're going to start with the White Rose Dragon. I thought about potentially, you know, hitting the Red Rose with the Call by here, but ultimately decided to do the Maxx instead. I wanted just a little bit more gas in my hand, like even one more card, like this Quick Launch actually ended up being it. So then when the Red Rose is summoned, I'll just bounce it with the Hieratic Seal, and then get it off of the board that way. Now the opponent does still have options here, right? I know because they have the White Dragon Rose, they can go into the Striker Dragon, but I can Ash to get so that they'll get the Boot Sector launch here and prevent even further extensions. Now that I've drawn Nibiru as well, like these are like literally the exact 2 cards I was looking to draw off this Maxx, the Nibiru and the Quick Launch. Now that I have both of these, I'm definitely not feeling too intimidated by what my opponent can do, nor am I feeling concerned about not having a follow-up. I mean, Wyverburster plus Rokket Tracer was, you know, enough of a follow-up anyway, but having the Quick Launch on top of it, and then now this Chaos Space as well, definitely what I'm looking for here. So I'll get rid of the Nibiru, I don't really think I'll need it, and search the Levianeer here in order to have just an extra body on board to help secure lethal. At this point, I can just try to go for, I guess, like an Accesscode, or I'm mainly just looking to get, you know, 7,000 points of damage on board. When I summon this Levianeer, I can use it to, you know, blow up the Striker Dragon, so I can just do it that way. Or so I think, but then actually, that's right, I think this was the game... Hang on a second. Okay, because I ended up going for Dharc here. Dharc the Dark Charmer Gloomy. Yeah, bringing back their White Rose, and then going for... Oh no, I'm going for Accesscode, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Knightmare Unicorn, Pitch a Seyfert. I actually have another game that I wanted to talk a little bit about when I brought out Levianeer, but I thought that was this game. That'll just be the next one. But yeah, as I go for the Accesscode, my opponent then concedes there. Funnily enough, I was actually very much in like speed run mode as I was doing this here. This deck in particular, the 300-second timer, I'm definitely feeling it a lot more. Like I remember this game. Oh, I remember because it was earlier today. But this game while I was playing, at this point, as I was trying to slam down the Accesscode, I think I literally had like less than 15 seconds left. So I was like really pushing it to be able to actually get lethal in, and there's a world where I might have like misclicked, or like something might have happened that have caused me to miss the opportunity to do that and then lose. So especially if you feel like your opponent's been comboing out for a while, like don't necessarily concede. Like granted, I was very likely going to win anyway, but it was very much more down to the wire than I think my opponent realized when they conceded there. So just a little bit of a word of advice there for you. All right, so let's go ahead and move on now to the next game. All right, next duel here is going to be against Sword Soul Tenyi. So managed to get a few good games in against some meta decks here. Still at the end of Season 10 at the time of recording this, but you know, obviously the new ban list is in effect, so the meta is still fairly relevant. Going second yet again here. This time we open an Infinite Impermanence, so that's definitely not too shabby. Yeah, opponent's going to leave with an Ecclesia into a Moye, and we just go ahead and throw out the Imperm here. especially since they revealed a Vishuda. You know, it's looking at least decently likely like that they might not have a follow-up, but I believe they do actually follow up with an emergence here. So this will get a Longyan to pitch that Vishuda in order to, you know, get the token, and they can Chi Shao for a potential search there as well. The search and the draw, actually. So, yeah, I mean, you know, the disruption ideally would have done a little bit more, but it is at least going to stop a level 10 synchro, i.e. a Baron, from coming down, in addition to the Chi Shao here. Yeah, so they get the draw, and then interestingly enough, they search an emergence here. This causes me to think that this face-down card that they sit is most likely Blackout, because there's not really any other reason why they would search emergence, right? They've already used emergence this turn. They're of course not going to search Longyan because they've already used that. No point in searching Moye or Taya because you can't normal summon. So then the remaining card left to search out makes sense as Blackout, right? But they didn't, they searched Emergence. And I thought for a second, well, maybe they misclicked, or maybe it was just a misplay, maybe they thought they hadn't used Emergence yet. But then after they set the face down card, I'm like, no, this has to be Blackout. There's no other reason why they would add Emergence there, unless it was a misplay. And you shouldn't assume that your opponent is misplaying if there is like a reasonable other answer to the why they're playing the way they do. So I will have to be mindful of Blackout on this turn, but it's not that big of a deal. I don't think we'll have too much of a difficult time playing around it. The main key is going to be to try to like bait it out here, right? So my opponent activates this, you know, Ash Blossom, and I actually let it resolve even though I've got the Called By in hand, because I've already got the Collapserpent in hand, and really, you know, I thought about searching maybe like a Rokket Tracer in order to summon off a potential Boot Sector launch here, but I also figured with the Blackout, it was reasonably likely that this Rokket, or this Boot Sector launch was just going to get hit by the Blackout if the Chi Shao didn't just outright negate the Striker Dragon anyway, so for that reason, I didn't think it was that important to get the ad. Like, basically, I thought the Called By might be more important for a potential like Maxx or Effect Veiler later in the turn than just, you know, getting an extra search here that I don't necessarily need, because again, I already had the Collapserpent in hand. The Starliege Seyfert search is not like 100% vital here. So I can still move into the Dragunity Knight Romulus here. I'll do that to add the Ravine, activating that. And I can get rid of this extra Seyfert. You know, obviously I've already normal summoned, so I don't need it anymore. At this point, the opponent's going to flip up the Blackout, but they actually end up targeting, like, kind of exactly the wrong things here. If they would have hit Tracer, and Ravine, honestly, that would have been fairly devastating here. Like, I'm looking at my graveyard, and I didn't really have any options to come back after that. I would have only had the Romulus, but they end up targeting the Romulus and the Ravine, which is perfect because now I can just use Tracer's effect as a quick effect, pop my Romulus, which is going to get popped anyway, and now I can still make a level 8 synchro play. So, opponent definitely should have hit the Tracer as one of the two targets here. Well, it specifically should have been Tracer plus Ravine, because I think if I would have gotten the Ravine Sind, I might have had a follow-up with the Romulus, potentially? I don't know, it really would have depended, honestly, but yeah, with the Tracer still on board, I definitely still have plays here, so... I could go for a Chaos Ruler to try to go for more extended plays, but at this point, I want to end on an Omni Negate anyway, so, or like a Negate of some sort, so I'll just go ahead and go straight for the Borreload Savage. Plus, I've got a nice Link 2 and Grave to equip, so I can throw down this Called By as potential additional negation, and then just give it back to the opponent here. You know, the opponent's got a lot of, I was going to say the opponent had a lot of their, like they had the Moye and the Longyan in hand, so, you know, if my opponent had gone to activate either, I could have potentially used Called By to banish, negating it for the rest of the turn. They would have gotten the effect. Still could have held on to my Borreload's Omni Negate on top of that. So between those two negations, I was feeling pretty confident moving forward through the rest of that game that my opponent wasn't going to give me any more trouble. And they just, you know, well, it says connection failed, but it was one of those things where the connection quote-unquote dropped as soon as I summoned the Borreload Savage, which is pretty indicative of a rage disconnect, you know, as far as I think they just closed the app or whatever. But in any case, yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at the next game. Okay, so this next duel is going to be against a 60-card Infernoid deck, which this has been the case, like, not just when playing Master Duel, but towards the tail end of when I played the TCG competitively as well. I quit the TCG around, like, you know, late 2015 or late 2016 about, and, yeah, so Infernoid was a thing when I was playing the TCG still as well. And Infernoid decks, I don't know what it is about them. They always scare the shit out of me. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I feel like they're somehow still unfamiliar, even though I've played against them a decent bit. Not a lot, but a decent bit. But, I mean, it also just always seems like they have got another extender. Like, no matter what kind of negation or disruption you've got, it seems like they've always got, like, another play, like another reasoning or another monster gate or... Just something like that. And when they load up the graveyard, it just gets, I don't know, this deck just scares me. There's something about it, but nevertheless, I'm going to go ahead and use the Impro and the Decatron there, because even though I'm not super duper well versed in this deck, I know it well enough to know that, like, you know, Decatron is one of their main monsters. Plus, as a general rule of thumb, if you're just very, very unfamiliar with the deck you're playing against, if they normal summon and then go to activate an effect, it's usually not too bad to negate that effect, because especially if it's like a search or a some kind of effect that sends from deck to graveyard, or just like lets them get specific cards out of their deck, because, you know, one, they've already used their normal summon, so it's harder for them to extend after that, and two, if they're only able to work with cards they've naturally opened with and not cards they're able to search for or send, they're typically going to have a harder time making plays. So in any case here, my hand's actually looking pretty good. I've got a decent number of extenders here. I've got 2 quick launches, and this card is not a once per turn, so having 2 actually does really matter here. Now, the card that my opponent has chosen to copy with the Decatron here does have the ability to negate spell or trap cards or effects, so I do have to be mindful of that, especially as I go to activate or activate this boot sector launch that I'm going to add here. I'm going to have to be particularly mindful of that, but like I said, I've got 2 quick launches, so I'll just use one of those to bait out the Decatron here, and sure enough, it does end up, my opponent does end up attributing it, so I'll just even throw out the other quick launch here, just to summon the monster, the Rokket Tracer I was going to summon anyway. Yeah, this Rokket Calibur, I've been testing it out for a little while to see how I like it over a second, of the, what is it, the level 4 non-tuner, I don't remember its name off the top of my head, but yeah, I wanted to try it out here just as you know, not only a different extending option, able to summon itself to a zone that a Dark Dragon points to, but also just the ability to have another level 4 tuner. That said, I don't find myself using its special summon ability, like, ever, so I think I might actually go back to a second. Is it Recharger, the level 4 non-tuner Rokket monster? I think I might just end up going back to a second copy of that. So here, even though I actually had the option to add this Gamma to my hand, I decided to set it to graveyard anyway, because I didn't have many... Oh yeah, it is Recharger. I didn't really have any other light monsters in my graveyard at this point, besides the Wyverburster that I just sent, so I wanted to have multiple lights and darks for not only the Levianeer, but to potentially bring back this Chaos Ruler as well. So decided to not add the Gamma, plus obviously with monsters on my board, I can't really make use of it anyway. Okay, here's the game where I was trying to figure out, like, what was going on here, because I went to go for lethal here, but then I realized my Rokket Tracer and my Levianeer couldn't attack. I wasn't sure... I mean, this is one of the things about, like, I don't like to complain much about modern Yu-Gi-Oh, but one thing I will say that I do tend to dislike about it is that there are so many times you're activating so many effects that have, like, little conditions and stipulations that it's really hard to keep track of them all sometimes. So, yeah, I went to go for lethal here because I'm like, oh, I definitely have more than 8,000 damage on board, but I was only able to attack with Dharc and Chaos Ruler. I was not able to attack with Tracer and Levianeer. Now, had I realized this, I could have obviously gone for, like, an Accesscode Talkder and gotten 8,000 damage on board and won this turn, but yeah, I don't know if anyone in the comments wants to enlighten me as to what condition kept me from attacking with those 2 monsters specifically. I wasn't mainly sure if it was something on my end or my opponent's end, because I have never encountered not being able to do that. I don't know about it in that exact scenario, but in general when playing Dragon Link before, but obviously I want to be mindful of that. So nevertheless, we do have enough materials to end on a Borreload, so I'll go ahead and do that here. Now, my opponent actually copied the Saitsamas, which has the ability to banish monsters when it battles. So I wondered if my opponent was going to bring that back as well. I was reading my opponent's monster effects in relation to my own Borreload's protection, trying to figure out what I needed to negate here. But yeah, here my opponent ends up tributing their own monster, and then, or not tributing their own monster, but yeah, they summon the big level 10, I think it's Onochi, and try to blow up all their cards in the field, and then at that point, I guess they didn't read my Borreload Dragon. You know, I was gonna make a joke about Yu-Gi-Oh players and not reading, but I very much just admitted to more or less not reading, like, not but 2 minutes ago. But in any case, yeah, it seems like the opponent there just didn't realize that my Borreload wasn't going to be destroyed by the Onochi effect, and conceded shortly afterward. It's nice having the Borreload there because, you know, Infernoid is able to put up a bunch of big, scary monsters, but the Borreload in that scenario was actually bigger than anything my opponent could put out. So we've got one more duel to show off. Let's go straight into it. Alright, apologies there. I thought I had one more duel saves, but I guess I didn't. I usually like to do 4 or 5, but I mean, I'm looking at the time. We still got a decent ways into the video with those 3 duels there. So I guess we'll just go ahead and call it here and just move on to the outro. So thank you, as always, as ever, for watching all the way to the very end of the video. I very much appreciate that. I am especially appreciative to those of you who are also commenting and subscribing as well. Comments, like I said, anyone who's like very well versed in Dragon Link, if it's like your main deck, definitely let me know what you think of like not just this particular 40 card variant, but like the 40 card variant in general. I know 60 card is generally the preferred way to go, but like I said, I really like having this kind of trimmed down build in order to open the disruption more consistently, particularly going second. Just trying to be mindful of that best of 1 format and make the most consistent build possible, kind of within that not limitation, I guess, so to speak, but just within the format that we're playing on Ranked Ladder here. So, yeah, and then subscribing is the best way to get notified of when my videos drop, which does happen every day. So you do get daily Master Duel videos just for subscribing there. But I think that's going to go ahead and do it for this one. That's all the time that I have for today. So without further ado, this is Hexlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.